that trilogy might be one in the future. And when it comes to that trilogy of Oleksandr Usyk in the future, I spoke to Oleksandr Usyk, got the chance to speak to him. Danny Flexen gave me the hot tag in doing the interview with Usyk from his training camp. And I posed to him, I read an interview that Joshua had done with the BBC, and he said that he kind of took some time to look at what he did when he took the microphone from Oleksandr Usyk, or at least used that time to speak to the audience after his defeat the second time around to Oleksandr Usyk, and he felt that that wasn't the right time to do that, and he offered an apology via Vladimir Klitschko to Oleksandr Usyk to say, look, I'm sorry for doing that, and kind of owned up and took responsibility for that moment. I spoke to Oleksandr Usyk and I said, is that an apology you're looking for? And is that an apology you accepted? And Usyk, to be fair, as magnanimous and as just a real stand-up kind of guy is Oleksandr. Secondly, he said he wasn't really looking for an apology. And then secondly, when it came to actually thinking back on that moment, he said that he had no bad feelings about Anthony Joshua. He respected him as a boxer, as the Olympic champion he was, as the two-time champion he was, and he just understood that there was an emotion coming from Joshua. He had no issues with him and that moment. So that was really kind of nice to see Usyk not harboring anything from that time. What did you before I come to you, Josh, actually as well? I asked Eddie Hearn as well. I said to him, "What do you think about Joshua offering that apology, and do you think he needed to?" And Eddie just kind of said, "Look, I don't really think he needed to, but Joshua's kind of just that stand-up guy that if he felt he needed to, he'd do it and he'd give it, eventually, and that's what he has done." But Joshua, coming back to you, throwing this to you, as I watch a video of Anthony Joshua throwing high kicks, might be something you want to check out as well. What do you think about that apology given and that moment where Joshua did grab the mic from Usyk?
I think looking at the apology, I think it shows the type of guy AJ is, because it's been nearly 2 years since that, and he still felt the need that he had to apologise. I think in the moment, when I looked on social media during that moment, he was getting so much stick. People were saying his head's gone, this, that, the other. And I think in the moment, it was just AJ realising, obviously you got to think AJ had been on top of the world for, a couple years at this point, and he just lost the rematch. Obviously, this was his second time going into a rematch where he was trying to reclaim the belts. With the first one obviously being Andy Ruiz, but he beat Andy Ruiz and we reclaimed those belts. And I think no one's going to go into a fight and thinking what's going to happen when they lose. I think AJ's realised that he's lost, not had his hand raised. I think he's just, in his head, he's just like, he's crumbling. And I think you could see that in the post-fight press conference when, he wasn't in the ring. And you could see how gutted he was. He had tears rolling down his face. I think all it was in the end was just a massive outburst of emotion, especially with how much pressure would have been put on him by the British fans, the press. The whole story of going into the rematch was that AJ needed to knock him out. AJ needed to get these belts back. And when he realised that he hadn't done that, and that these belts were fully gone now, there was no third chance of getting the belts back. Or no instant rematch anyway, no immediate rematch, like what he's had to do here. He's had to work his way back. I think it was just a massive outburst of emotion and almost the pressure coming off his shoulders, because I'm sure while the next day he's probably going to have woken up feeling a little bit gutted that he's not got the belts, all that pressure that was put on him going into the rematch was probably gone. I'm not sure he probably felt the happiness of the pressure being gone straight away, because ultimately it's not like the pressure was gone because he reclaimed the belts. He got defeated that night. But I think him apologising, a year and a half, 2 years on, it really shows the type of guy AJ is. I think he's someone who's not let the fame, the money, the followers, he's not let that get to him. He's still I think he's found that same headspace that he was in at the start when he first started boxing. So he wants to learn again. And I think him apologising, like I said already, it shows the type of guy that he is. It shows that he's a true, he's a human. He looks back and he regrets these things. And it's good that he's tried to reach out to Usyk and say, I'm sorry for that. It was disrespectful.
What my kind of take was on that whole situation was it was just so out of character for what Anthony Joshua usually does, when it comes to him and he's just so kind of. I think the tag that's been labelled towards him, and it's again somewhat unfair, but you get it when you're in that high profile spotlight. You are media trained, so you give your answers in that sort of way, and everyone's kind of wanted to scratch away at that and want to see what Anthony Joshua's kind of true kind of persona is. When he's on camera, when those spotlights burn the brightest, and we've never really seen that apart from those moments. And that was one specific moment where we saw Joshua outside of kind of that media trained shell, I guess. And for me, I didn't feel like there was something particularly he needed to apologize for. It was particularly disrespectful. It's kind of just good to see Joshua be himself. And this is one of those things where he's damned where if he does, and he's damned if he doesn't. Because I remember the same sort of people who were when Joshua lost to Ruiz on that stunning night, where he wasn't meant to by just a massive underdog Andy Ruiz. The same sort of people were criticizing AJ for handing the belts over to him, not kind of being pissed off or peed off in the post fight, and just being kind of, congratulating Ruiz for his win, and not kind of being pissed that he lost the belts. But then fast forward to Usyk in the highest or the most pressurized night of his career, and he gives you that moment where he's pissed off. You can see the raw emotion. You've got that. And people want to criticize on that point as well, too. So I just feel like AJ in these moments can't ever win. But for me, it was nice to see him, one, just be himself. And then two as well, like the other side of it, think about it and maybe offer that apology if he felt that he needed to do that and have that kind of bit of growth as well. So I really kind of respect that idea from Anthony Joshua and the way he carries himself inside and outside the ring. At least in the last few years as well, too. Moving forward as well as time rapidly moves out, judging and going by the Oleksandr Usyk interview I did, he had some funny little one-liners, none more so than when it's put to him about some of the comments that Tyson Fury made about being called a bunny rabbit and a cruiserweight, although called a cruiserweight is no disrespect. Maybe it is when you're in the heavyweight division, but because of Usyk's accomplishments, being undisputed at cruiserweight, it's not that bad of a comment to make from Fury. But what did Oleksandr Usyk make of that? And he called himself, he said, the streets know me as Oleksandr the Evil, which is a funny little comment from Oleksandr Usyk. But he looks ready. A lot of people commenting about maybe putting on some weight Usyk has for the Fury fight in the future. The main thing that I asked him, and I knew I wasn't going to get a straight answer out of him, but is the point of contention regarding the cut to Fury's eye, as to whether that would be something that Oleksandr, being the accurate puncher that he is and the real kind of fast, hurtful puncher, spiteful puncher that he is, would he be looking to target what he feels is maybe a weakness from Fury? And he naturally didn't give anything away. But for you, Josh, the cut, do you feel that it's a weakness enough to sway the fight in Usyk's favor against Tyson Fury?
That's a good question. That is a very good question. I don't think it's enough to sway the fight. I think this is such an elite level fight that a cut isn't going to be significant enough. The cut will only become significant in the fight is if it gets opened. But if the cut doesn't open, it's not significant. And if it doesn't open anywhere near as bad as what it has been seen to, I don't think it will be a massive factor. However, Usyk might not say it, but I think in his head, and I'm not in Usyk's head, this is just what I'd be thinking if I was him, that spot has opened multiple times before. It's not the first time where that cut has opened. And I feel Usyk is accurate enough and smart enough to find openings to target that area, but without making it obvious. Because there's one thing targeting it, but you don't want to do it so it's obvious. I think Usyk's smart enough to just hit it a couple times and keep just like hitting that same spot. And I think eventually he could catch it, he could open it. And I think once we get to that stage, I think that's where it becomes a massive problem, because it's not a nice place to get a cut. It's right next to the eye. The blood will be going into the eye. And I just feel Usyk's got that smartness and he's got that accuracy to really, really find the openings to get the cut.